One of the things I realized early on in life is that you have to keep testing yourself. You have to keep challenging yourself if you want to move forward. And that's one of the reasons why I really love the Wim Hof Method. Certainly over the first couple of months, you are effectively challenging yourself. You're testing yourself. You're making yourself do something that at first doesn't feel natural, that at first doesn't feel very nice, except afterwards. The cold shower, I've got to a point now after 2 years, feels great before and after. My brain remembers the good things. So before I step out into the garden and douse myself with the cold water from the hose, my brain automatically remembers the good stuff. It automatically says you're looking forward to it, and straight away I therefore get a high, as it were, whilst embracing the cold. But certainly the first few months you're not going to get that. And for the first few months, some days you really are going to have to push yourself to get out into the cold, or if you're not doing it via the garden hose, just to step into the shower and turn it all the way to the left, if left is your cold. So let's talk about the psychology first of all. There's two bits here in this video. There's the psychology impact on you by doing the Wim Hof Method, and then there's the interesting psychology of others when you're doing it. So let's talk about the benefits that you will get psychologically. The main one really is this creating a discipline. If you're like me, 2 years ago plus, I wasn't disciplined. I didn't really have a daily routine. I ambled through life. I let life direct me. The real catalyst to my change and the creation of Evolution of Dave was starting the Wim Hof Method. And the reason why it caused such a drastic change in my thinking, my psychology, is because of that initial first few months of doing the Wim Hof Method, where it's actually quite easy to do it for the first couple of weeks, because when you combine it with the power breathing, the yoga, you feel blooming good. So there's no reason why you would stop. But it's like anything, it's especially when you start in January. And by the way, January is a brilliant time to start the Wim Hof Method. But you've got to check in with your intention behind it and your ability to commit, because that's key here. 2-3 weeks in, you'll start to get used to the feelings. You'll still be experiencing the highs. You'll reach a month and you're still going to be feeling good. But as your body adapts and changes, those highs start to dissipate. So then you've got to look at other reserves of energy. You've got to look at other reasons for doing this. And this is the point, this is the crucial point where a lot of people give up. And this is where you need to almost put a note in your diary. In February, check in with yourself and start to consider and be mindful of the discipline benefits. Because if you can push past that into the second month, the third month, fourth, fifth, by that point, you're going to be doing it every day anyway. And actually, it's going to be easier because it's the summer. So I really do recommend getting outside and using the cold hose. But to get to that point, you need to remind yourself of the discipline benefits, because what happens is this. Because initially you're making yourself do something that hurts, or let's say psychologically hurts, rather than physically. You're making yourself do something that feels uncomfortable. If you listen to or read about David Goggins, this is the key trick, as it were, the key hack in his life, that he makes himself feel uncomfortable every day, because only by doing that do you grow, and only by doing that do you start to like that experience, because your brain rewires and it remembers all the benefits of getting uncomfortable, because by getting uncomfortable you grow, you strengthen not only your mind but your body as well. So the biggest, for me, the biggest gain apart from the health benefits is the psychological benefit to doing the Wim Hof Method. You really do start to change so long as you stick at it. You've got to commit to this. You've got to do it daily. If you commit to it, you do it daily, you really will see profound benefits psychologically. So it's brilliant for those that are watching this sitting on their sofa. You know, people that sleep too long. And that works both ways. You can't get too little amount of sleep and you can't get too much sleep. You've got to find that happy medium, which is, as you know, around 7 or 8 hours. Oh, by the way, actually, there's another big benefit there. Your sleep does improve when you do the Wim Hof method. Certainly if you do the occasional cold shower prior to going to sleep. Again, do your own research. So getting back to it, the psychological gains are huge. You will change your thinking. You will change your reason for being, and also the discipline that you create through doing this daily impacts other areas of your life where you start to create further disciplines. So I've gone from being a fairly apathetic, lazy-ish, not completely, I mean I wasn't a complete couch potato, but I was letting life, as I say, direct me. I've gone from that to being very driven, ambitious. I was never ambitious before. And I really do put a lot of it down to the Wim Hof method. So if that's you, if you're sitting here and this is the 10th or 20th video that you've gone through this morning, stop right now. Or maybe wait to the end of this video. Check in with yourself. Turn off your device. And actually, if you haven't had a shower yet, or even if you have, go and jump in. Now, I will have said this on my other videos. Wim Hof certainly states that probably the best way to acclimatize is to start with a warm shower and then gradually increase more and more cold as the days progress, which you could do. I didn't, and I just went straight for the cold because I needed that slap in the face. I needed that hot poker up the bum to change my current state. If you've seen my other videos, you might well have heard about the reason why I started the whole evolution of Dave, and it was because of a bit of a wake-up call. That very next day, I really needed a shock to the system. So for me, actually, starting with the cold straight away really worked. So, you know what, I think, even if you stay under there for 10 seconds, to snap you out of your current reverie, I think actually just do jump into the cold. You know, the next day you don't have to do that. The next day you could then do the proper method. You could start warm and gradually, get used to increasing more and more cold. Most indoor cold water temperature sits certainly in the West at around 10 degrees on average. When you get outside, it's a little bit colder, but not much, maybe a degree or so. It's only when you go into the winter and you start stepping into icy lakes or cold ponds, as I did with the tribe of evolutionary folk in London. By the way, if you haven't joined the tribe, do so. It's in Facebook, it's free. And what's lovely is that it's a whole lot of group nutcases like me, all of whom want to enhance their life physically and mentally. So again, if you're at the beginning of your journey, it's a really good time to join that group. The other psychological benefits, apart from the discipline, you'll notice this almost change in character. Your way of looking at the world, like I say, your resolve changes. That because of the changes in the neurochemicals and the way the body produces these neurochemicals, you're going to get increases in serotonin, dopamine, etc. This is where your character starts to change positively. And this is what other people start to notice. So let's move on to the psychology of others, because this is the amusing bit. So here's what will inevitably happen. Is Winston having too much fun? Come on, Winston. You will embark on this Wim Hof malarkey. As you start to see the benefits, and initially you're going to start to feel highs. So those closest to you will probably hear about your story. As you start to see the health benefits as well as the highs, you probably won't be able to stop yourself evangelizing, because I did, and I can imagine everybody does this. So don't try and stop that. It's going to happen. Somebody may listen, but bear in mind that very few closest to you are going to take heed of what you're saying, because why would they? It seems illogical. Why would you bother stepping into the cold? Why would you do something that hurts, that that challenges you. So the psychology of others is really interesting, because not only are you going to get people that when you start to tell them about the Wim Hof Method, they're going to tell you either to shut up, as they did with me. They're certainly not going to listen. They're not going to believe what you say. Even those that have inflammatory diseases and chronic illness and all those other kind of conditions that, if you look at the research and if you look at the Wim Hof website, you'll see the many testimonials of people whom have either ridden themselves of the condition or have eased it significantly without, and actually in many cases, quite often, people can give up the pharmaceuticals that they were given for that specific condition. And even when you tell them those stories, those people with those conditions will not listen. They're not going to take heed of what you say. And what will probably happen, as it did with me, is that some people, either closest to you or kind of your acquaintances, may have some derogatory remarks. I mean, they did with me. One person actually said, yeah, Dave, isn't this a bit delusional? So, I mean, just get used to that. Just suck it up. And that's good for you too, you know. When it can be frustrating when others don't listen, especially when you know in your heart that what you say is the truth. But just don't expect them to, and don't get affected by it. Don't get hurt by it, because everybody has their own opinion. And you yourself, I'm sure, probably did something similar when somebody else stated something that seemed outlandish, that seemed illogical. After maybe a year, in other words, after a period of time where you've committed to it and you've stuck to it, and the health benefits kick in, when you start to look better, let's say you needed to lose weight, and you also combine the Wim Hof method with, say, intermittent fasting, as I do, the weight is going to drop off. That's all you need to do. You don't need to even look at your diet, really. So what will happen is that even if you don't need to lose weight, other health benefits will start to show. Your skin will look a lot healthier. You start to develop a kind of a healthy pallor. People will notice. And at that point, they will then start to ask you questions, or they'll just start doing it and almost forget the fact that you told them to do it in the first place. But again, just consider that a positive. Know that actually by doing all of that, by starting your journey, others will eventually follow. Now, I should add, if you decide to embrace the ice, there is the extra psychological benefit, because I don't do it that much, but when I do, of course, there is that moment beforehand where you know the benefits and you can slip in fairly comfortably, but it's those first kind of 10 seconds or so before your natural body's reaction, the fight, flight, survival instinct of moving all the blood to your vital organs. Before that actually occurs, you are possibly in a state of questioning why you're doing this in the first place. But again, you know, this really adds a huge psychological benefit. I know that the wonderful Tony Robbins has a cold plunge which he makes himself go in every day, and he does that very much not only for the health benefits but the psychological gains. Evolution of Dave signing off. I hope that was useful. Good luck for your 2020. Have fun.